if we talk about formative events and maybe some things we're seeing unfold right now, I want you just to think about how your perspective on life in the world and your place in it would shift if you had experienced all of the chaos of the last 5 or 10 years as a child or as a teenager. So thinking about things like fake news, how we now have technology that controls the news we see. They don't know what to trust or what's real. We all, if you're older, you had the news. It might not have been accurate, but it was consistent, right? Like which news channel that told the exact same news do you want to listen to? It's led to a real demand for transparency, that they want information and clear information and to understand what's going on. Their risk tolerance, as contrasted to the millennials, has actually gone up because they haven't had a choice. So they are a more risk tolerant generation and have really shown signs already of being much more self-directed than the millennials. So rather than sort of taking cues from parents as to what they should be doing, or the helicopter parenting that we saw with our millennials, we've invested in you, we have to make sure our investment is returned and that you don't fail. We're seeing some pullback on that for Gen Z. They're making their own choices, particularly about things like education and career. Of course, as you know, the attention revolution, very short attention spans due to sort of our media, not necessarily bad or good, just the way we're delivering things like education is shifting. Most started their careers during or slightly after lockdown so far. So some have never been actually in the same workspace as their coworkers. And we're seeing very closely in higher ed, we're monitoring the fact that many of them are foregoing four-year education for things like trade schools, certifications, gap years, taking some different paths that might seem more secure, less risky because of things like loan debt. So those are all trends. And then, of course, really importantly, mental health focus and the stigma around mental health, thankfully, is decreasing for this generation. And very purpose-driven, which is consistent with the millennial generation as well. So those are just some trends we're looking at. Stay tuned on those. I'm sure all you have to do is scroll your media feed to see that generations have been pitted in this war against each other, that we are somehow in this battlefield. And the first chapter of our book is actually entitled Blame 60 Minutes, and it features a really horrible segment from the early 2000s where the host Morley Safer did a segment called The Millennials Are Coming. Like it was this plague and we should all crawl under the table and hide, like really just creating this narrative that generations were in conflict, that we all were going to compete, that the difference was negative and bad rather than interesting and important. And that has continued to this day, this narrative. So if you don't believe me, I collect really bad generational headlines. So I'm just going to share a few with you. These are all real headlines. The millennials tend to take the brunt of it. We scapegoat them for as many things as possible. Anything we're unhappy about that is changing is the fault of our millennials. Occasionally, we will blame other generations, but millennials are a favorite of the media.